Good morning. My name is Joel Hellman. I'm Dean of the School of Foreign Service here at Georgetown. It is my great honor and privilege to welcome Prime Minister of the Socialist Republic of Vietnam, Chinh, and his delegation to the School of Foreign Service at Georgetown University. This is the oldest school of international affairs in the United States. This is an historic occasion. It's the first ever visit of a Vietnamese Prime Minister to the campus of Georgetown University, and we are honored to have him here. We are living in a truly consequential global moment in which the very contours of the global order are being redefined before our very eyes. Though much is still uncertain about what shape this new order will take, one thing is for certain, that emerging voices like Vietnam are taking a new role on the world stage, commensurate with their extraordinary economic success, their increasing regional influence, and their important role in global cooperation to solve truly existential risks for all of us, like climate change, global pandemics, and the changing role of technology. We are especially pleased to have Prime Minister Chinh here at SFS, since we believe we have a global obligation as the leading international affairs school in the nation's capital to serve as a platform for influential voices from Asia and from across the global South. And we hope that the Prime Minister's words will resonate not just here on campus to influence a new generation of global leaders, but beyond this campus to Washington, D.C., where the inclusion of Vietnam's voice is so critical to enhancing global cooperation. It is in that spirit that I warmly welcome the Prime Minister. Let me just say a few words about our esteemed guest. Elected as Prime Minister in April 2021, he is one of the highest-ranking officials in Vietnam and is currently a member of the Politburo of the Communist Party of Vietnam and a member of the National Assembly. He has held a variety of important positions in fields very close to our hearts here at the School of Foreign Service, in diplomacy, in security, and in intelligence throughout his career. Please join me now in welcoming Prime Minister Chinh. Following his remarks, Professor Evan Medeiros, the Kling Family Professor in our Asian Studies program, will moderate a question and answer session. Students have pieces of paper or will be given pieces of paper in which you can write your question. We will only be taking questions from our Georgetown students to give the next generation a chance to speak. So let me now welcome the Prime Minister to the podium. Thank you.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, esteemed professors and dear students. Today, it's such a great pleasure for me to be here in the campus at a school which is renowned for exclusive architecture and history. In this cordial ambience, I am very touched and emotional because I think the atmosphere today of wonderful hospitality inspired all of us to have a productive conversation. I want to thank you again, Professor John Hall, for your kind words and introduction. I think that you briefed us very comprehensively. As you may know that a week ago, President Biden paid a state visit to Vietnam. It was a very significant and historic visit to Vietnam. He joined General Secretary Nguyễn Phú Trọng Vietnam in announcing the upgrade of relations to comprehensive strategic partnership for peace, cooperation, and sustainable development. This is a very important milestone in the history of our bilateral relations. Looking back at the past 48 years, we recognize that the relationships between our countries have experiencing ups and downs. From a war-torn country ravaged by the war, Vietnam strived to normalize the relations with the U.S. back in 1995. In 2001, we concluded and signed the BTA bilateral trade agreement. I was very honored as one of the major negotiators, and it was a very tough process. And after that, we completed negotiations and signed the BTA, very important to both countries. And in 2013, on the occasion of the visit by former President Chinh of Vietnam, we set up the comprehensive partnership. And I'm very happy that the U.S. committed to respecting in 2015 the sovereignty, national integrity, and political system of Vietnam. In 2015, on the occasion of the visit by General Secretary of Vietnam to the U.S., we upgraded the partnership and cooperation. So in a nutshell, following 2013, we founded the comprehensive partnership. We recognize the mutual respect for political system and national sovereignty. And a week ago, as I mentioned before, we elevated the relations to new heights in the spirit of setting aside the past and moving forward future for peace, cooperation, and mutual development. This is the best way we actualize the dreams of President Ho Chi Minh, the great hero of Vietnam and the culture man of the world. In his letter to President Truman on 16 February 1946, right a couple of months following declaration of independence of Vietnam. At that time, President Ho Chi Minh wrote a letter sent to President Truman. He wanted to set up a full and comprehensive cooperation with the United States. That was back in 1946. This is the history that we go through together, many ups and downs. And even before that, there were a lot of important milestones in the history of bilateral relationship. I will tell you about that narratives later on. Today, it gives me a privilege and pleasure to be here at one of the top-notch universities, Georgetown. I think that many Asian Americans have gained a lot of successes after graduation from this school, and they have a lot of successes in their career and their life. So I want to very much appreciate the contributions of Georgetown University to the world and also to the development of Vietnam. I'm very grateful to your partnership and contribution. I have a great honor to address such a very esteemed audience today, and I want to focus on three important points. The first one, how the world looks like today. So I entirely agree with the previous speaker. You're right about the landscape of the global situations. Second, I will share with you the development targets and policies and foreign relations policy of Vietnam. And third point is we want to galvanize and energize the comprehensive strategic partnership between our countries in the coming years. I will go one by one. So the world as it is today, the global landscape is experiencing intricate challenges. In short, peace, cooperation, and development remains a mainstream of the world, an ardent desire for the people of the world. Tourism, trade, commercial, economic, cultural relations and exchanges remain the mainstream of the world. That is the trend. Moreover, the fourth industrial revolution, digital green transformation, innovation continues to open up new horizons for development, especially the human mind and creativity are a limitless resource and asset. Thus, the first things of my thoughts I want to share with you. Apart from that, we cope with the toughest time since the Cold War. Back to the First World War I in 1918, and then we have the Second World War, and it ended in 1945. After the end of World War II, the world was divided and plunged into the Cold War. The United States got wealthier, and other countries were still very poor and faced with a lot of difficulties. After the end of Cold War, we witnessed a short period of time when multilateralism was upheld and the world was stabilized for a short time. As a result, a lot of commercial and trade agreements were concluded and signed among countries in every corner of the world, and that such a stability helped the world grow stronger, including countries of Vietnam and the United States. We all know about this. In addition, the strategic competition among major powers, geopolitical and geoeconomic rivalries, surge in the use of arms and force in international relations, extreme nationalists are rising. Can be said that in some key points, the mainstream is peace. But we have seen wars and conflicts. We've seen the tensions, the line between war and peace, between development and stagnation, between independence and dependence are growing thinner than ever. As I said, this line is getting thinner than ever. The challenges like aging population, food security, energy security, water security, cyber security, transnational crime continue to develop in manifold ways and very complicated ways. After the war between Ukraine and Russia, the world was splitted up, was fragmented very deeply. And if we look at the global economy, the world economy is facing various headwinds. After the World Economic Forum in Tiananmen, China, we heard about the headwinds. The World Bank forecast a warning of lost decade. Many sustainable development goals by the United Nations have been pushed back and unlikely to be met by 2030. So the energy security is our concern. Oil price is rising sharply. And one of the reasons for the rise is due to the geopolitical conflicts. It is not just because of economic reasons. If we look into rice price, we see the fact that rice price is going up, oil price also rising. So all in all, they affecting the international relations. For example, as an important exporter of rice in the world, Vietnam exports around 6 million tons of rice every year. If we just pursue the profit, we will surely increase rice price. But we don't do that way. We want to make sure that we can make contributions to guaranteeing food security in the region and the world. Therefore, we maintain a very stable supply of rice to the region and the world. Vietnam opts for peace, development, and being a responsible member of the international community. And now, if we look at the Indo-Asia-Pacific, accounting for more than 60% of global economy and GDP, this region is expected to be the most dynamic growing economy where cooperation and links converge. And this is an important link between the Indo-Ocean and Pacific Ocean regions. And back to the Southeast Asia, a couple of weeks ago, I attended the ASEAN Summit, and we have the East Asian Summit, embracing major countries in Southeast Asia and East Asia regions. We succeeded in announcing a joint statement which put ASEAN at the heart of economic growth. Asia-Pacific region will continue to be a dynamic and innovative economies of the world, and ASEAN in which will play a central role. Other matters like sovereign disputes, non-traditional challenges, non-traditional security issues, we must not discount the possibility of tension and loss of control in this region, because when we lose our control, we will fail to manage to understand and control the circumstances. The world is facing unprecedented volatility, confronted with never-before-seen problems. We're facing many human security matters to all regions and areas of the world. There's also a lot of matters to be resolved. For example, the global issues, or whole population issues, like the pandemic of COVID-19. For example, no one was immune to the pandemic, to COVID-19, and no one can be safe if we do not join hands together in addressing the pandemic. As for the global challenges and the issues that can affect the entire people and nation, we must have concerted efforts and endeavors from all countries. No single country itself can resolve those matters if we do not help the helping hand from the vaccine producers, from the developed countries. We cannot put an end to the pandemic. And I think it's now time to showcase the continued responsibility. The wealthy countries need to continue to help the poorer countries. The young people need to help the elderly people. The strong people need to help the weak people. And by so doing, we will find solutions to global challenges. We cannot be passive. We need to be active in our responses. I think that adaptation in our responses and putting forth the flexible solutions are the best ways to circumvent the challenges. And we need to advocate peace, development, and stability of the world as the mainstream and the trend for the development globally. We need to maximize the spirit of peace, cooperation for mutual development. Vietnam chooses the latter. We want to make peace and stability our goal. We hope that our partners would do likewise. The second important point I want to share with you is Vietnam's developmental targets and policies and its foreign policy. It can be said that Vietnam was one of the most countries ravaged by the war we face with fascism, the colonial regime and neo-colonial suppression and even the genocide caused by the Khmer Rouge in Cambodia back to 2019, when the court came up with the final verdict on and judgment on genocide offenses of Khmer Rouge, so that we completed the fight against the human genocide and helped the neighboring country. Back to 1975, after the end of the war, we thought that it would be fine for us because we would enjoy peace internally, because all the challenges, all the hardships and sacrifices have come to an end. But unfortunately, after that, we face the wars again. We forced to hold guns to the battlefield against the invaders and the people who caused genocide. And after that, we suffer the isolation and embargoes from other countries. I hope that you will understand correctly the history, because no country wants the war or conflict. Because when the country was isolated and embargoed for more than a decade from a war-torn country ravaged heavily by consequences of the war, after that, Vietnam was badly affected by isolation and embargoes. And because that was a part of the facts and the truth from the history, and we need to tell the truth to everyone. As a matter of fact, building upon the ashes of the war, the Vietnamese people stood up to raise the reform and to grow further. We respect and cherish all the democratic values for the people to grow the country. And we set a target by 2045, we will be a developed high-income country. By 2030, Vietnam will be a developing country with modern industries and upper middle income. That is the overall goals for the country set by the 13th National Congress of the Communist Party of Vietnam. And we look back at the history and we draw lessons so that we can do better for the people in the coming years. We continue to persevere with the path of national independence, socialism, and aim for wealthy people, strong nation, democracy, fairness, and civilization. I have been to the United States for many times, and I understand that both Democrats or Republicans all consider the well-being, the happiness of the people as theirs, and the well-being, happiness of Americans' people are also the important considerations of the politician. And if I understand it correctly, the second lesson from Vietnam's development is solidarity and unity internally and externally. As President Ho Chi Minh, great leader of Vietnam, hero, man of Vietnam culture, man of culture of Vietnam, drew a very important lesson that the unity and international solidarity are the best policy to grow stronger together. I think that this is very indispensable to Vietnam's economic growth. We combine the strengths of internal sources and the external unity and power. After the war, we received the assistance and cooperation from international community, especially the United States. So we are grateful to the cooperation of the United States. And now Vietnam exports to the United States with a value over 100 billion US dollars. We are one of the top traders together in the world. I think that Ambassador Napper understands very well the progress of the bilateral trade between the two countries. I emphasize the importance of the unity and solidarity domestically and internationally. The next point is the leadership of the Communist Party of Vietnam is pivotal and the key to the success of Vietnam. Vietnam's political system is different from the other countries. All the power, the ultimate power, belong to the people. And we carried out all the policies, programs for development under the leadership of the Communist Party of Vietnam. Therefore, the leadership of the Communist Party is a decisive factor to the success story of Vietnam. And now let me turn to the major orientations for future development. Today, I was asked to talk about the policies of Vietnam, the vision of Vietnam, and I want to explain to you the history of Vietnam, the ways of development that we opted for, and the vision forward. In the coming time, Vietnam will be focusing on the following policy. The first one is to continue the industrialization and modernization of the country. If you travel to Vietnam after the end of the war, you would understand the situation, the adversity and hardships of Vietnam. Vietnam at the time was at the lowest level of development. We developed from the ashes of the war, from the debris of the war. But we were bravery to develop, and I think that modernization and industrialization of the country are an important platform for a country like Vietnam to grow stronger. I think that it's also the same for the United States if you look back in the history. Second, Vietnam will continue to pursue socialist, developing socialist-oriented market economy. We respect the market competition. For the Vietnamese economy, we have some important features. The first one, that Vietnam is a developing country, and by 2030, Vietnam will continue to be a developing country with modern industries and upper middle income. We are in transition from a centrally planned economy to market economy, and the scale of the economy is still limited. We have a high level of openness for the economy. For example, last year's GDP Vietnam was around 410 billion US dollars, but the total trade was over 723 billion US dollars. The economy is very open. Therefore, any external shock may immediately influence the Vietnamese economy. Therefore, it's important to have a suitable roadmap compatible to the level of Vietnam's development. Each country has different background in terms of culture, development, and history. We cannot apply one-size-fits-all model for all countries. And Vietnam chooses the path of developing a resilient, self-reliant, independent economy in which we mobilize the internal resources and strengths combined with the external cooperation and partnership. For example, inside the economy, we have many important issues like capital resources, human resources, among others. And externally, we need to have the business partnership from international investors and corporations. The next point is that we need to continue to optimize and maximize the democratic values. We need to continue to uphold the democracy so that to unblock and unleash all the contributions and intellect of the people, the whole people. The point is that we need to continue to grow a national culture imbued with national identity. Culture is always important, and culture plays a critical role to the development of the country. And I think for the U.S. it's identical, because culture is the base for the development of humanity and each and every nation. And it's important for Vietnam to continue to develop a law-governed and rule-of-law state by the people, for the people, and of the people. The people are the drivers, actor of economic growth. We need to engage all the people in policy-making, decision-making, and legislative work, so that by working together, we will improve the institutional framework. The sixth important point is continue the international foreign policy of multilateralization and diversification of international relations. Vietnam continues to be reliable partner and friend to all countries in the world, a responsible member of the international community. This foreign policy is very clear, and we will continue to safeguard the national sovereignty, territorial integrity, and continue to develop the defense and security by the people, of the people, and for the people. We protect the country and maintain the national security for the best interests of the people. That is the ultimate goal, because at the end of the day, defense and security will yield good results and benefits to people. We will persevere with the defense policy for no. We don't want to be sided with one country against the other country, and we do not allow the third country to have their military base in the land of Vietnam against other country. No military alliances, no siding with one country against other country, no foreign military base on the land of Vietnam or use of its territory against another country, no use of threat or force in international relations. That's the four no's regarding national defense strategy of Vietnam. Eighth, we want to enhance the fight against corruption and transgression. We want to build a good party with two major important duties: the fight against corruption and transgression. We put in place two important guidances. The first one is that the policy must be compatible with the circumstances and level of development of the country. And second, we need to develop the human resources, civil servants, commensurate with their responsibility position in the civil servant system. I think that among the 8 important points I just mentioned, human plays the key role. Human is both the driver, the momentum, and the ultimate goal of the development policy. So I want to repeat again, human plays a central role. We do not sacrifice justice, social justice, environmental protection in return for economic growth. And in this process, human manpower have an important standing to play. Yesterday, I met a lot of business executives and politicians in the state of California, in San Francisco. We talk about social welfare, environmental issues, and developmental issues. I think that we all agree that the rich need to continue to help the poor. The strong people need to help the weak people, and the young people must help the elderly people. And that is the path that Vietnam will continue to pursue. Of course, regarding social welfare, it's different from country to country, but the general policy is to help and provide support to the people in case of emergency and hardships. That's why we can put an end to the pandemic and help the people get out of the hardships. I think that abiding by the laws are also very important to us. Therefore, enhancing institutional framework and legislation very important to each country. One of the issues I want to share with you is infrastructure development. In terms of energy, telecommunication, healthcare, education, and social development. So the soft and hard infrastructure development is very important to make breakthroughs in economic growth. One more important point is about the quality of human resources. Human resources very critical to growth and development. Therefore, we will continue to improve the quality of human resources in Vietnam. If we look back at the past, after launch of đổi mới or national reform in Vietnam back in 1986, that time was very difficult for Vietnam. The total GDP of Vietnam at that time stood at less than $4 billion. Very low number. So GDP per capita at that time was less than $100. But in 2022, with population of over 100 million people, GDP per capita $4,000, and with the total GDP over 700 billion. We now control the budget deficit, the government debts, national debts. We succeeded in maintaining the macroeconomic stability. In 2022, GDP growth of Vietnam was over 8%, and inflation was under 3%. We maintained political stability, defense and security for the people, and promoted international integration even stronger. These are important achievements of Vietnam over the years, and Vietnam is one of the top 30 countries succeeding in enhancing the national brand name. Regarding international relations, we have established diplomatic relations with 192 territories and countries. We concluded and signed over 16 next generation FTAs with over 60 countries. We engage very deeply in concerted efforts in resolving international affairs and global challenges. We came from passive engagement to active engagement. We contributed to restoration of peace in many areas of the world. And looking back at the history, we have Paris Accord and Geneva Peace Accord to restore the peace in Vietnam. That was very important to the development of Vietnam. And all in all, Vietnam has been very active in international integration. Some years ago, Vietnam hosted the summit between President Trump and President Kim Jong-un in Hanoi. Vietnam also participated in peacekeeping operations, peacekeeping forces by the United Nations. This is one of the ways that we showcase high sense of responsibility to global development. And the United Nations also recognize Vietnam as an exemplar with regard to poverty reduction, hunger alleviation. Vietnam has graduated from the list of the countries succeeding in reducing poverty and alleviating hunger. These are important accomplishments for Vietnam. But anyway, Vietnam is facing the new challenges, and we cannot immune to the global challenges all countries are facing now. More intricate challenges we're facing, I think that stronger actions we need to take. And we want to show stronger determination and stronger endeavors. And Vietnam is striving on its development path with focus on important breakthrough for the development. Of course, we have a lot of work to be done in the coming years, but we just want to complete all the projects and programs we carrying out for the country. At any time, I always think that Vietnam is facing with difficulties. We should not be complacent. We should not be too optimistic about the situation and accomplishments. We cannot be complacent with the gains we have. We need to persevere with the policies in moving ahead and moving forward. This is what I want to share with you. I think that in a very fluctuations and volatilities and uncertainties of the world, at any time, anywhere, we all face difficulties like high inflation, war and conflicts. So I think that high inflation and economic crisis are affecting people all over the world. Many people suffer a lot. The United States is the largest economy in the world. And after the end of the pandemic, the U.S. economy is recovering, and this is good for other countries in the world. We need to continue our partnership to make good use of the opportunities and respond to the challenges together. I think that we need to be well prepared in dealing with the future challenges in order to maintain the stability, peace for our development. Next point I want to make is that we are very proud of the history of our bilateral relationship, especially important strides in and progress in our relationship after 1975. We overcame the differences, we circumvented the pains, the sadness of the war. We agree to set aside the past and move forward the brighter future for both countries and both peoples. We travel a long journey so far, and today we can be proud of what we have achieved on this journey. I think the ardent aspirations of our two countries stem from long time ago, back to I think that the 18th century. At that time, President of the United States wanted to import some variety of agricultural products from Vietnam to cultivate in the United States. And in early 19th century, Captain Mariner Herrick sailed through the seas to Vietnam, and he wanted to connect the business people by commerce from both sides. And in the 20th century, President Ho Chi Minh came to Boston. Last year, I visited the historical site where President Ho Chi Minh lived and stayed and worked in Boston. That was a hotel where they soon keep a table for making bakeries and cake during his work in the United States. And the inspiration of Ho Chi Minh to write the National Declaration of Independence of Vietnam also came from the National Declaration of Independence from the United States. And I quote, everybody is created equal and endowed by their creators with the inalienable rights. Among these, the life, pursuit of happiness are important rights. And I think that this is what we were inspired by the National Declaration of Independence by the United States, so that we have a deep root in the history for the bilateral relationship. We had the letter from President Ho Chi Minh sent to President Truman, and it took us a century. Back to 2013, we made the dream come true. We have a comprehensive and complete and full cooperation by setting up the comprehensive partnership. And I'm very happy that we have a lot of exchanges of visits from high-level leaders of the two countries. This tenure is very special when we have the visits by President and Vice President of the United States, the Foreign Secretary of State visit, the visit by Secretary of Commerce, Secretary of Agriculture, and Secretary of Treasury to Vietnam. And with respect to economic cooperation, we expanded ample opportunities for the two business community. We have exchanged a business mission. We have remarkable progress in terms of trade and investment. The United States ranks 11 among 130 countries and territories investing in Vietnam. I think that this is incommensurate with the excellent political relations we have now, because as the largest economy in the world, U.S. now just ranked 11th among 130 countries and territories. So I think the United States need to improve the ranking in terms of FDI inflows in Vietnam. We have increased the trade by 20-fold. We have hundreds of billions of US dollars for the value of bilateral trade, and we enjoy excellent cooperation in terms of education and training. Yesterday, I visited the UCSF, University California, San Francisco University, state of, and I think that we enjoy good results from education and training. And I visited yesterday 3 important high-tech companies in Silicon Valley, and they all committed to investments in Vietnam. Human-to-human connection, people-to-people exchanges are very important, because just in the United States we have over 2 million Vietnamese Americans living in the U.S., accounting for 1/3 of the total Vietnamese nationals, Vietnamese origins living abroad. We have total 6 million people. So the number of Vietnamese students studying in the U.S. just rank after China and India. And I think that we have important connections in terms of education and training. We have high number of students studying in the United States. They serve as an important bridge to connect the peoples between the 2 countries. We need to think of the students as a future generation that connect our families. We are brothers and sisters in the same family. I think that we can improve the understanding by exchanging cultural values. We respect the differences, and by working together, we find out the solutions to resolve the differences. Because as members of the family, sometimes the members of family may have debate, may have quarrels, but then we can resolve all the matters if we have the sincerity and mutual understanding. I think that in order to actualize very fast the comprehensive strategic partnership, the first one, we need to conduct and carry it out at a high pace the plan of action. During my visit this time, my trip this time, I will attend the UN, the 78th UN General Assembly in New York. But before that, I want to visit San Francisco and Washington, D.C. San Francisco, where we have Silicon Valley and high-tech innovation companies. And today, I travel to Washington, D.C. I want to meet with academia and students to share the vision, to share the development policy, the foreign policy of Vietnam, so that you understand better Vietnam. I think that all the resources come from the thinking, from the way of thinking, from innovation. And strength often comes from the people and the business people as well. So by sharing the information and policies and exchanging our ways of thinking, that is the best way to follow up after the announcement of comprehensive strategic partnership. I think that sincerity, mutual trust are the platform for us to lay the groundwork for future partnership. Everywhere I go, I want to make sure that we have trust from you, and you will feel and will see the trust. I think that is very important when we together have mutual trust for one another. Through the conversation we have today, this is a way that we build trust and mutual understanding together. I want to highlight the mutual trust and understanding. This is the base for the two countries to realize all the high-level commitments in the spirit of setting aside the past, looking forward to the future by optimizing the things in common and minimizing the differences. I think we need to come up with the new methods, the new ways of implementation for our projects and programs. We need to introduce the new models of cooperation and partnership to make sure that we have very concrete projects and programs to make our comprehensive strategic partnership happen in reality. These are only follow-ups after the establishment of comprehensive strategic partnership. I think that we need to expeditiously implement the plan of action, and I look to your support so that we can continue our partnership, and the U.S. will continue to support a self-reliant, independent, resilient, and prosperous Vietnam in the coming years. Vietnam is still a developing economy, poor country. Therefore, we need help, we need assistance and partnership from the United States to grow the country of Vietnam and to enhance the development between the two countries. I think that in this process, we need to view trade and investment cooperation as major pillars. We need to expand from the framework, from the existing mechanisms. And I hope that the United States will support, facilitate the access of Vietnamese companies to the new ways of innovation, high technology, to develop green economy, sharing economy, circular economy, and support the digital transformation for Vietnamese economy. And in the other way around, Vietnam wants to be the gateway for American companies to come to ASEAN, to come to Asia. And we focus on the three important breakthroughs so that we want to engage you deeply in economic growth of Vietnam. We need to early upgrade the legal framework for the new partnership. For example, the bilateral trade agreements need to be enhanced, need to be upgraded to meet the requirements of reality. And looking at the broader picture, I think that manufacturing of semiconductor, of chips, the biotechnology, pharmaceuticals, among others, these are important industries to focus on. And second, we need to continue to foster the defense and security cooperation compatible to commitments and circumstances of each country. Particularly, we need to work together to address the war legacy. Ambassador Napper contributed a lot through his participation in the removal of unexploded ordnances, because every day in Vietnam, a lot of people injured and killed by the unexploded ordnances. Many Americans still missing in action. We conducted a lot of searches, and the same for Vietnam. We have hundreds of thousands of Vietnamese soldiers. We cannot find their remains, and we're still collaborating together. And by cooperating in these areas, we will reduce the hatred, the sadness of for all people from both sides. One more important area we need to address is that the sentiment or the Vietnamese Americans still keep in their mind, or they misunderstand about the circumstances in Vietnam, development of Vietnam. I hope that all the professors and students and American people who are not yet understand correctly the situation in Vietnam, we want to invite the people who misunderstand the situation in Vietnam. They should come to Vietnam. They always welcome to Vietnam. Seeing is believing, I trust, because that is one of the way that if we change our attitude, we change our sentiment, we change our behavior, so we can help healing the wounds of the war. And the next point is that Vietnam stands ready to serve as an important bridge and gateway for American people to reach out to ASEAN and ASEAN market. Vietnam is proud to be one of the top countries among ASEAN states in the business partnership and collaboration with the Americans. We can work on the other issues and matters, for example, peacekeeping, development, cooperation. Now ASEAN is one of the major hubs. We selected the theme of ASEAN Summit is ASEAN Matters, so that when Madam Vice President Harris attended the U.S. ASEAN Summit in Indonesia recently, she agreed with the subject and topics we talk about and want to tighten the business partnership between both sides. And we want to continue with the national reconciliation for the Vietnamese people. This is very important for further economic growth and development of Vietnam. And both sides need to collaborate to enhance human rights, collaboration, reduce differences. I think that it's obvious that we do have differences, and the best way is to focus on the results-oriented solutions. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished participants, I think that in the coming years, I really want to enhance the substantiveness and efficiency for the relationship between Vietnam and the United States, commensurate with the excellent political relations of the two countries for the people and for the sake of peace, stability, and development in the region and the world. We do no harm to other countries for the development of the two countries. Looking back at the past 3 decades of relationship, I'm very optimistic about the future relations. We need to take greater endeavors. We need to take stronger actions and bring greater efficiency to our cooperation. 5 years from now, 10 years from now, if we look back, we can be proud of our comprehensive partnership. Once again, thank you so much for your listening. I'm a little bit touched and emotional today, so I wish to have your understanding and sympathy because I speak at length. Thank you again for your attention. In concluding, let me quote President Abraham Lincoln. Always bear in mind that your own resolution to succeed is more important than any other. So, your own resolution to succeed is more important than any other. Your success is also our success. Thank you for your listening.
Prime Minister. Okay. Prime Minister Chinh, thank you very much.
Chúng tôi xin chân thành cảm ơn ngài Thủ tướng. Thấy những cái phát biểu của Thủ tướng nó rất là mang tầm chiến lược, rất là đầy đủ, toàn diện.
Thank you again. We're going to spend a few minutes doing Q&A. Right now, we've invited everybody to submit cards. So I think we're collecting those cards right now. The questions are only from the students. And while I get the cards and sort through them, I'm going to ask the first question. So I recall fondly 2013 when in the Obama administration we negotiated the comprehensive partnership. And I was one of the people negotiating on the behalf of President Obama. And at that time, we asked Vietnam, we pushed Vietnam for a strategic partnership. And Vietnam's response was, it's too soon, it's not yet time for a strategic partnership. But of course, just last week, the U.S. and Vietnam did a double upgrade to a comprehensive strategic partnership, the same level that you have with Russia and China. So my question is very simple. Why the double upgrade now? And of course, as a School of Foreign Affairs, everybody's wondering, wasn't it really about China?
Vâng, tôi chưa rõ cái ý của ngài muốn hỏi cái tôi nghĩ là chúng tôi thì
As I have said, we persevere with the foreign policy of independence, sovereignty, and we stand ready to be a reliable partner and responsible member of the international community, and we stand ready to make contributions to the assurance of peace, stability, and development in the region and in the world. In terms of the upgrading of relations between Vietnam and other countries, that does not depend on other countries, but that depends on actually on the desire of the people of the two countries of Vietnam and the countries that we elevate relations. So that is my question to your answer. So we upgrade relations with the United States not just not because of some other country. We believe that it is now a suitable time for our two countries to double upgrade our bilateral relations, because we believe that the elevation of bilateral relations to comprehensive strategic partnership is for the mutual benefit of our two peoples and also contribute to peace, stability, and development in the region and in the world. So I wonder whether my answer is okay to you.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Rất là tuyệt.
So I want to make sure that we have time for the students' questions. So we have many Vietnamese students here in the School of Foreign Service, though we'd like more, so we should talk about that too. But we have a question from one of our master's students from Vietnam. What does the government of Vietnam expect the role of the Vietnamese people to be in climate adaptation and sustainable development?
như ban nãy tôi nói
I have also mentioned in my speech about climate change. And as we all see, climate change is a global issue. It is a global challenge. And therefore, it is very important that we need to uphold international solidarity in response to climate change. And as you already know, we have made very strong commitments at the COP26 conference. I myself also co-hosted a summit with the President of the European Commission and also with the President of the and the Chair of the European Council on our commitment to net zero emission by 2050. We have also developed an action plan to realize our commitment on net zero emission by 2050. And Vietnam stands ready to make important contributions to the cause of the world in response to climate change. We would like to be a responsible member of the international community in this cause, and we look forward to working closely with the United States in this cause, because as you know, Vietnam is one of the most 5 affected countries by climate change in the world, and that therefore cooperation is very important for us in this field.
So, thank you, Mr. Prime Minister. So the question was focused on not just everything that the Vietnamese government is doing, but also the Vietnamese people. So what do you see the people of Vietnam, how can they contribute to the government's very ambitious climate change goals?
Every policy we develop is targeted to our people. So the people stands at the center of all of our policy and our objectives. So we encourage the people from all over the country to engage in the process of policy making and also policy implementation. And they must be one of the key actors to implement the policy of the governments, including the policies on climate change. And we encourage their participation, their engagement up to their capacity, and we also encourage the community support to engage the people in the course of climate change response, and also in the development process in other fields, such as in energy transition, in anti-droughts and floodings. So the people are always at the center of all our policy-making process, as I have emphasized.
Thank you. Fascinating. Fascinating. So we've got another question from another Vietnamese student doing a master's degree in the School of Foreign Service that asks, given that the economic U.S.-Vietnam economic cooperation is the anchor of the comprehensive strategic partnership, in your opinion, what are Vietnam's greatest challenges to realize its economic potential?
I think between politics and economics, there are many close bonds and close relations. So what we need to do is to ensure good political relations. We need to overcome all differences. We need also to build trust. And from political trust, we can together develop cooperation mechanisms and make joint efforts in order to uphold such cooperation mechanisms. And apart from mechanisms and from policies, we need to engage the people and enterprises in this process so that they can contribute more and more to the cooperation mechanisms between our two countries, so that these cooperation will bring about benefits to the people of both countries, and it will be suitable to the political system and to the cultures of both countries. And I believe that our two countries are now now in a much better condition to realize the economic cooperation, and there is no reason that we are not able to overcome the current and future challenges in economic cooperation and economic development.
Well, I absolutely agree. And I share your ambitions for the future of the U.S. Vietnam relationships. So we've got another sort of related question about, given the ambitions, your ambitions for Vietnam's economy, given your ambitions for the U.S. Vietnam economic relationship, what steps is Vietnam going to take to move up the technology value chain? The U.S. and Vietnam recently signed an agreement on semiconductors, for example. So how is Vietnam going to be able to position itself at the center of new global technology value chain, semiconductors, electric vehicles, batteries, etc.? How do you do that?
Vâng, tôi cũng đã nói đấy.
As I have mentioned, Vietnam remains a developing country, and we still have an economy which is in transition. In order to make the great progress in our development process, we need to take steady steps, and therefore it is very important for Vietnam to improve our institutions, for us to implement effectively our commitments. We also need to embark on the development of infrastructures, critical infrastructures such as hard and soft infrastructures, information infrastructure, digital infrastructure. We also need to focus on developing high-quality workforce, because if you want to transfer technology to us, but if we do not have a good workforce, then we cannot be successful. And during my visits to some U.S. enterprises yesterday, I saw that the way of corporate governance in a specific enterprise now change, and therefore we need to take steps to learn from the United States in various fields, from governance, corporate governance, to the policies to step up our transitional process for economic development. And with such steps, we believe that we will be successful.
Very thoughtful answer. So I have one final question because time is limited. And once the Prime Minister answers the question, we're going to invite all of the students to go into the President's room and take a picture with Prime Minister Chinh. So all of the students, Georgetown students here, you're all welcome to join us in the President's room for a picture with Prime Minister Chinh. So Prime Minister, you talked about investing in institutions, you talked about human capital. So a natural final question is about how you see the role of cooperation in education and educational exchanges, right? And here at the School of Foreign Service, we are a deeply multinational institution. We have students from all over the world, including Vietnam, though we're always happy to have more. But as the leader of Vietnam's economy, how do you look at working with universities and schools in other countries, including the United States, as a way to build your institutions, as a way to upskill your workforce in order to position Vietnam to be a leader in the global economy in the 21st century?
Vâng.
Thank you for the question. One of the important elements of the comprehensive strategic partnership between Vietnam and the U.S. is education and training cooperation. And it is very important for our two countries to realize our agreement in this field. And we highly appreciate the important role of the United States in the realization of the cooperation pillar on education and training, because we all see that the United States is a country with the most advanced education and training system in the world. And therefore, our policy is that we would like to expand the cooperation between our universities and U.S. universities. And we now have over 30,000 Vietnamese students studying in the United States, and we are only behind China, the most populous country in the world. We do have a very big community of Vietnamese students studying in the United States. And that shows the fact that we greatly appreciate the important role of the United States in education and training. And you have a very long history of education, of advanced education and training. And I think that our two countries have worked together in this field for a long time. And now is the time for us to further elevate the cooperation in this field. And we look forward to the continued support from the United States in the process of training high-quality workforce for Vietnam in order to create, to help Vietnam realize one of our three strategic breakthroughs on developing high-quality human resources. And as you know, we have the Fulbright University in Vietnam, and the first class already graduated. So you already have Fulbright University in Vietnam, and we continue to send our students over to the United States. We hope that you will continue to help us in training our students in the U.S., but we also hope that you will help us expand the operation of the Vietnamese University so that we can, you can also participate in the training of high-quality workforce in our country, and especially in the new fields such as energy transition or circular economy, sharing economy. And now that our two countries have elevated relations to comprehensive strategic partnership, I think that we have very good conditions to further strengthen cooperation in this field, and we look forward to your support in this field. We hope that Georgetown University will increase scholarships and fellowships to Vietnamese students, and I hope that more and more Vietnamese students will come to your university and other U.S. university to study, so that you can help them, you can train them, and they can grow up, they can contribute not only to the bilateral relations between our two countries, but also to this field. Thank you.
Well, Prime Minister Chinh,
Kính thưa,
your presentation today was visionary. You laid out a vision for the future of Vietnam, Vietnam's role in the world, Vietnam's role in the global economy. It was comprehensive, it was strategic, and we appreciate you taking the time to answer some of the questions on the minds of our students. I'm gonna quote you back to both your ambassador and your foreign minister when we go talk to him about broadening educational exchanges. So I hope you don't mind, but I'm going to quote your words back to your excellent ambassador and your foreign minister. So please join me again in thanking Prime Minister Chinh.
Vâng, xin cảm ơn các ngài đã cho tôi một cái cơ hội.
So once again, I would like to thank you very much for your giving me the time to share with you some of my thoughts. Thank you very much for your kind words on my remarks.
Yeah, Joel.